In the heart of Moscow, Idaho, a peaceful college town surrounded by pine trees and long, quiet roads, something unthinkable happened. On the morning of November 13th, 2022, a 911 call came in from a student house on King Road. The voice on the line was shaking. The words were frantic. When officers arrived, what they found inside changed the town forever. 4 University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, had been murdered, stabbed to death in the middle of the night while they slept. No signs of forced entry, no known enemies, no clear motive. The nation was stunned. How could something so brutal happen in a small college house, in a town with barely 25,000 people? Let's go back to the last night they were seen alive. Kaylee and Madison, lifelong best friends, had gone to a popular college bar. They left around 1:30 a.m. Zaina and Ethan had attended a frat party nearby. By 1:45 a.m., all 4 students had returned home. Security footage showed them arriving safely. They likely thought the night was over, that they were safe. But sometime between 4 and 4:20 a.m., someone entered the house, someone carrying a knife. Investigators believe the killer entered through the second-floor sliding glass door. He moved quietly, deliberately, targeting Kaylee and Madison first. Both girls were found in the same bed. They never had a chance to scream. Then he moved downstairs, where Zaina and Ethan were sleeping. Ethan was killed next. Zaina, however, was awake. She had defensive wounds, bruises, cuts on her arms. She tried to fight, but she didn't make it. 2 other roommates were in the house. They were untouched. One of them later reported waking up to crying, then seeing a tall figure in black clothing and a mask walking toward the back door. She froze, locked herself in her room, didn't call 911 until hours later. The killer had vanished into the night. Investigators combed the house for weeks. The scene was described as one of the bloodiest many had ever seen. But they found something. A tan leather knife sheath. It had been left on the bed, right next to Madison. On the snap, there was DNA. And that DNA changed everything. It led police to a 28-year-old PhD student named Brian Kohberger. He studied criminology at nearby Washington State University. He drove a white Hyundai Elantra, just like the one caught speeding away on surveillance footage that night. Cell phone data placed him near the house at least 12 times before the murders, always late at night. He even returned to the scene just hours after the killings. On December 30th, 2022, Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. He had driven across the country, thousands of miles, to hide, or maybe just to watch the chaos he created unfold from afar. The arrest shocks the country. Who was this man? Why did he do it? Did he know them? Was it personal? Kohberger never spoke. He never confessed. In July 2025, after years of hearings and delays, he took a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He admitted to all 4 murders. He was sentenced to 4 life sentences, without the possibility of parole. But even in court, he gave no explanation, just a quiet stare. The house where the murders happened was later demolished. Nothing remains but a patch of grass and the memory. Kaylee, Madison, Zaina, Ethan. 4 young lives stolen for no reason. No words can bring them back. But their names will never be forgotten. And their story is far from over. In the city of angels, evil hides in plain sight. This is the story of a woman with dreams, whose life was stolen, and whose death became the darkest chapter in Los Angeles history. They called her the Black Dahlia. January 15th, 1947. A mother and her 3-year-old daughter were walking down a sidewalk in South Los Angeles. The neighborhood was quiet, ordinary, but what they saw next would haunt the nation for generations. Lying in the grass of a vacant lot was what looked like a mannequin, pale, lifeless, bent into a strange pose. The woman stepped closer and screamed. It was a body, a woman, sliced clean in half at the waist, drained of blood, carefully posed with her arms raised above her head. And worst of all, her mouth had been cut open, from ear to ear. Police rushed to the scene. There was no blood at the location, none. Whoever did this killed her somewhere else, cleaned her body, and brought her here, not to hide her, but to display her, like a message. Investigators found rope burns on her wrists and ankles, sharp cuts on her thighs and chest. Her body had been scrubbed clean with gasoline, and there wasn't a single usable fingerprint. The victim was soon identified as 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, a beautiful young woman who had recently moved to Los Angeles. She wanted to be an actress. She dreamed of making it big. But now, her face was on every newspaper in the country, not as a star, but as a symbol of something far more terrifying. The media called her the Black Dahlia, inspired by her dark clothing and a film noir called The Blue Dahlia. But the truth was, Elizabeth wasn't a femme fatale. She wasn't a starlet. She was a lonely young woman trying to survive in a hard city. She worked as a waitress, slept on friends' couches, and was constantly looking for her next opportunity. But instead of fame, she found something else, a killer, and a legacy she never asked for. The Black Dahlia investigation became one of the largest manhunts in California history. The LAPD interviewed hundreds of people, more than 500 confessed to her murder, and still, no one was ever charged. Then something strange happened. On January 24th, just 9 days after the murder, the Los Angeles Examiner received a package. Inside were Elizabeth Short's personal belongings, her birth certificate, social security card, her address book, with pages torn out, all wiped down with gasoline. The killer had mailed it himself, and he signed the letter, the Black Dahlia Avenger. He was mocking the police, playing with them, like it was all a game, and they were losing. Over time, dozens of suspects emerged. Doctors, drifters, artists, ex-lovers, but one name stood out. Dr. George Hodel, a brilliant but deeply disturbing man, a surgeon, rich, charismatic, but also accused by his own daughter of incest. He had connections to police. He knew how to clean wounds, how to sever a body with precision. And his house was bugged by the LAPD in 1950. In one recorded conversation, George Hodel said, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary. She's dead." No charges were ever filed, and he fled the country soon after. Years later, his own son, a former LAPD detective, would claim that his father was the killer. He wrote books, gave interviews, showed photos of the crime that looked eerily similar to George's past artwork. But still, no closure. Elizabeth Short's case remains open, unsolved, cold, and quiet. She was buried in Oakland, California. Her grave is still visited today by people from around the world. People who remember her not as a symbol, but as a person. A woman who smiled in photographs, who wore flowers in her hair, who loved movies and chocolate, who trusted the wrong person and paid the ultimate price. The Black Dahlia case gave birth to a modern obsession with true crime, but behind the headlines and books was a real girl, a real life, and a horrific death. Elizabeth Short was not a myth. She was not a mystery to solve. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, and someone whose killer still walks free. Her name was Elizabeth Short, and she deserved better. It happened in one of the biggest cities in the world, but when she cried for help, nobody came. This is the true story of Kitty Genovese, and how her murder became one of the most infamous crimes in American history, not just because of what was done to her, but because of what wasn't. It was March 13th, 1964. Just after 3 a.m., 28-year-old Catherine Kitty Genovese was driving home from her bartending shift. She was exhausted, but she was used to this routine. She pulled into her usual parking spot behind her apartment building, locked her car, adjusted her coat, and began walking toward home. But someone was watching her. A man named Winston Mosley had been circling the neighborhood in his white Chevy Corvair. He wasn't there by accident. He was hunting, and Kitty was his target. He parked a block away, got out, followed her on foot. As she walked under the streetlight, she heard footsteps. Her pace quickened. She turned around, and then the first stab.
Oh my God, he stabbed me. Help me. Please help me.
Apartment lights flickered on. Curtains moved. A man's voice shouted from a window.
"Leave that girl alone!"
Mosley ran. Kitty, bleeding, staggered forward, desperate to reach the entrance of her building. She collapsed in the dimly lit hallway, still alive, but fading. And the street went silent again. No one came to help her. No one followed up. And 10 minutes later, Mosley returned. He searched the shadows. He found her. He stabbed her again. He raped her. He took her money, $49, and vanished. Kitty Genovese died alone, just steps from safety, in a hallway she thought would protect her. The entire attack lasted around 30 minutes. 2 weeks later came the headline, 37 who saw murder didn't call the police. The article shocked the world. 37 people heard her screams, and no one helped. No one ran outside. No one called. No one even checked. The public was outraged. Kitty became a symbol of something horrifying. What happens when we all assume someone else will help? Psychologists studied it. They gave it a name, the bystander effect. It was studied, taught, debated, and feared. But years later, the truth began to shift. Journalists started digging. Investigators reopened the case. And what they found was complicated. The number wasn't 37. Some witnesses had only heard muffled sounds. Some thought it was a drunken couple fighting. One person did call the police. Another ran to Kitty's side after the second attack. The truth wasn't that no one cared. It was that no one knew how bad it really was. But still, the damage was done. The silence was real, and it cost Kitty her life. Winston Mosley was arrested days later. He had broken into another home. He was caught, interrogated, and confessed. Not just to Kitty's murder, but 2 others. "I just wanted to kill a woman," he said. He was sentenced to life in prison. He died behind bars in 2016. Kitty Genovese never got justice in the way we hoped, but her story changed everything. Her case led to the creation of the 911 system. It sparked emergency service reform across the country, and it challenged people everywhere to ask, what would you do? Would you freeze or would you help? Kitty's name is remembered, not just as a victim, but as a symbol of what happens when the world stays silent, because doing nothing can be just as deadly. Her name was Kitty Genovese, and we will never forget what happened on that dark, quiet street when no one helped.